Hi everyone, my name is Annie and I work at the Penrose Library. I'm here today to talk to you about the basic steps of character building in the world of Dungeons & Dragons, specifically the most recent edition of the game, 5e, or the 5th edition. Your character is going to be who you are playing as during a tabletop game. This is a chance to act out and experience a life completely different from your own. Or you can take elements of your life and add them to your character. Anything goes in the world of character creation. To begin with, make sure you have either a fillable PDF version of a character sheet or print off one, a pencil or pen, and your very own dice. Dice rollers are also available as apps on most devices. You'll want to have at least one of the following: a D4, a D6, a D8, 2D10, a D12, and a D20. The D stands for dice, and the number stands for how many sides the dice has. For example, a D8 is a dice with 8 sides. Now, the first step in character creation is choosing your race and class. In D&D, there are base races and classes that will always be playable, but in some games there will be special races and classes. However, we're here to talk about the basics, and if you know how to build a character out of the basics, those special classes will be a cinch when and if they come up. Your standard D&D races are elf, human, half-elf, dwarf, halfling, gnome, dragonborn, half-orc, and tiefling. Each race starts with certain benefits or drawbacks, so keep that in mind while you're deciding who you want your character to be or what class you may want them to take. You can also look for more information on these races online at D&D Online. Speaking of classes, the base classes in D&D 5e are Barbarian, Bard, Cleric, Druid, Fighter, Monk, Paladin, Ranger, Rogue, Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard. These classes are essentially your job, what your character is going to be best at, such as fighting or healing or casting spells. Your general physical fighters are going to be barbarians, fighters, monks, paladins, rangers, and rogues. Your magical classes will tend to be bards, clerics, druids, sorcerers, warlocks, and wizards. Unfortunately, I don't have time to go too in-depth on each race and class and all the subsections in each. However, in the description below will be printouts and links to more detailed information on each race and class. So check those out before you start your build. Now, you know your race and your class. For an example build, I will be creating a fairly simple human fighter. The magic casting system can be a bit confusing at first, so we'll cover that in a later video. But feel free to explore the magic system on your own. In most campaigns, when you're starting out, your character is going to begin at level 1. In D&D, a character can make it all the way up to level 20, but that doesn't happen often, especially if you're starting with a level 1 adventurer. But what exactly does being a level 1 character look like? This is where we start getting into our numbers game. The next step involves your hit points and hit dice. Essentially, how tough is your character and how hard is it to get their hit points to 0? Just like a video game character, if you lose a certain amount of HP, your character dies. Naturally, we want to avoid that fate, so build and battle with your character's HP in mind. Now, all level 1 characters start out with 1 hit die, but the single die is determined by your class. Are you a wizard? You get 1 D6, or single 6-sided die. Are you a barbarian? You get 1 D12, or a single 12-sided die. The highest number on the dice, plus your constitution modifier, is going to equal your hit points. Obviously, this affects how your character will engage in combat. The wizard shouldn't be going in swinging an axe, or they'll be gone quickly. But this number will increase as your character level increases, so don't worry about it being low for too long. Since our example character is a level 1 fighter, their hit dice is 1 D10. The highest number on the D10 is a 10. Keep this in mind for the moment. We'll need that number later to determine our hit points, once we look up what our human fighter's constitution modifier is. The other part of this step is to look at the proficiency bonuses your character gets from their class. In our example, the fighter gets a +2 proficiency bonus at first level, with proficiencies in all armor and shields, simple weapons, martial weapons, and absolutely no proficiencies in tools such as lockpicks. Your class also determines what skills you get. For a fighter, you can pick 2 skills out of the following options: acrobatics, animal handling, athletics, history, insight, intimidation, perception, and survival. I'll come back to choosing skills after determining what abilities this character will have. Before we go much further, we do need to talk about abilities. Abilities are the big generalized stats that all the specialty skills fall into. These abilities are strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Strength is how strong your character is. This can also apply to how athletic they are, which can be involved with actions such as climbing or swimming. If you're stronger, you can be a better climber, along with being able to throw a spear or swing a sword really well. Dexterity is how nimble you are. Dexterity plays into a lot of different skills, from stealth to acrobatics to lock-picking and sleight of hand. If you've got a higher dexterity, the sneakier you can be. Dexterity can also play into things like climbing or non-thrown ranged weapons like bows and crossbows. Some of these roles depend a lot on how the person running your game wants to call it, so make sure that you talk to your DM. Constitution is how tough your character is. How many hits can they take? How hard is it to kill them? There aren't many special skills associated with this ability, but your character not dying is a pretty big deal, so it stands on its own in that regard. Intelligence is how book smart you are. This can cover how competent you are in the history of the area, reading geography, doing research, and investigation. Whole host of stuff. It also plays into some forms of magic. Wisdom is street smarts. Wisdom will help you with perceiving the world around you, dealing with animals, and seeing what people's intentions are. If you want to understand the world around you from a more in-person perspective, rather than through books, wisdom is that ability. Clerics frequently use wisdom. Finally, we have charisma. This ability is essentially how charming you are. This helps you to intimidate, deceive, persuade, and perform. Many people get intimidated by playing high charisma characters, especially if they're shy in real life. However, there are many ways to portray a high charisma, so don't think you can't play such a character. There's far more to charisma than just smooth talking. So, back to our numbers. There are a variety of approved ways to generate your ability scores, from rolling dice to get randomly generated numbers, to having predetermined standard scores. Some home games you get a setup pool of total points to divvy up how you see fit with a starting pool of 27 points. Further information on this variant is located in the description below on the D&D website. No matter how you do it, there is some numbers translation that needs to be done. Let's say I take the standard set of scores. These stats are 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8 for the standard presets. Since we're building a fighter, we'll put the 15 into their strength and the 14 into constitution, since fighters get hurt more frequently being in the thick of things. We'll put the 13 into charisma so they can be intimidating, 12 into dexterity, 10 into wisdom, and 8 into intelligence. Here's also where we take into account racial benefits. For humans, all of their ability scores each increase by 1. Now, we need to translate these ability scores into ability modifiers. Here is a chart on screen showing the conversion rate of scores into how large of a modifier that is. Starting out with the ability modifier bonus for being a human character, we have scores of 16, 15, 14, 13, 11, and 9. This means our modifiers are a +3, +2, +2, +1, 0, and a -1. Don't worry about having a negative on 1 or 2 of your traits. This is all to build a balanced character, and most likely other players in your party will have characters that can make up for these areas of weakness. Remember, D&D is a team, collaborative effort. Since we have our modifiers, we can now go back to our human fighter's HP. So we have the hit die of 10 and our con modifier of +2 for a total HP pool of 12. Here's also where we determine our saving throws. Saving throws are determined by class. For a fighter, the 2 saving throws are strength and constitution. If you're in a dangerous situation, these are what can give you a bonus to save you. We can also touch back on what skills we want to choose. Since this character's best scores are in strength and constitution, we could choose skills from there. But skills can also be leveled as your ability levels increase, so don't feel trapped by that idea. For this character, I think I would like to choose Intimidation and Acrobatics for her skills. What about speed? Speed is basically how many feet your character can move per action. Each square is 5 feet. We will discuss how speed operates in combat in another video. For now, speed is tied directly to your race. A tiny race will move fewer spaces versus a giant race. Most races are medium and move 30 feet per round. As humans are a medium-sized creature, they move 30 feet per combat round. You can find your race's speed listed in the race section of the player's handbook, which is also available online. Great! We're starting to get a better idea of how our character is going to play. But now is my personal favorite part of fleshing out the character, creating the person as you're going to roleplay as. Here you can really let your creativity flow. What's their name? What do they look like? Here's also where we'll get into alignment, ideals, bonds, flaws, and backgrounds. Since we're playing in an entirely different world, there are tons of ways for your character to look, sound, and behave. Also, don't worry about gender. D&D fully supports non-binary notions of sex and gender, both by the creators and in canon. The elf god Corellon Larethian is often seen as androgynous, for example. I'm going to make this particular character a female from Illusk. Her name will be Westra Lackman, and she will look like most Illuskins. Tall at 6 foot 2 inches, 180 pounds, with pale skin, raven black hair in a braid, steel gray eyes. Humans speak Common, so that's her base language. I'm going to make her age 28, so she has some experience in combat and a very fit and strong physique. Now that we have an idea of what our fighter looks like, we can move on to background details. You can pick these details in any order you see fit. Some people choose to pick their alignment first and build from there. Others want more details on their character's history before choosing that. There is no wrong way to choose. Alignments can be tricky and easy to get stereotyped. I highly recommend doing more research into alignments, or let me know if you want me to have a deeper discussion on them in the future. For now, here's a very, very quick run through. Alignments are chosen on a 3x3 grid. One axis is lawful, neutral, chaotic. The other good, neutral, evil. You have 9 alignments to choose from. As you can see on this chart, the way these intersect changes how a character behaves drastically. Most games don't encourage evil characters for a variety of reasons, but talk to your DM about it first and foremost. Now, lawful good will do the right thing as expected by society. Neutral good individuals do the best they can to help others according to their needs. Chaotic good folks act as their conscience directs with very little regard for what others expect. Lawful neutral individuals act in accordance with the law, tradition, or personal codes. True neutral is those who prefer to steer clear of moral questions and don't take sides, doing what seems best at the time. Chaotic neutral follow their whims, holding their own personal freedom above all else. Lawful evil beings methodically take what they want within the limits of a code of tradition, loyalty, or order. Neutral evil is the alignment of those who do whatever they can get away with without compassion or qualms. Finally, chaotic evil entities act with arbitrary violence spurred by their greed, hatred, or bloodlust. Personally, I enjoy playing chaotic or neutral characters. This time around, I think Westra is going to be lawful neutral, specifically following her own personal code of honor as a warrior. Now, we will be selecting our background, which includes picking 2 personality traits, 1 ideal, 1 bond, and 1 flaw for our character. There's a list of each of these provided below with descriptions of what they mean. There are many backgrounds to choose from, so take your time looking through and really think about your character and who you want them to be. Maybe you look into the culture of the race your character is to get some inspiration. For Westra, Aluskins are a proud, warlike raiding society where strength and self-sufficiency are everything, expecting even young children to be able to survive on their own in the harsh wilderness that makes up Illusk. They shun class hierarchies and magic, have few interactions with other races due to their prejudice based on strength alone, though they do get on fairly well with dwarves. Because of this, I think a background of outlander will suit her well, meaning she grew up in the wilds far away from civilization and the comforts of town and technology. This background grants skill proficiencies in athletics and survival, tool proficiencies in one type of musical instrument, one extra language, and has equipment of a staff, a hunting trap, a trophy from an animal she killed, a set of traveler's clothes, and a pouch containing 10 GP. GP, or gold pieces, is the currency of Dungeons & Dragons. Her personality traits are going to be, I once ran 25 miles without stopping to warn my clan of an approaching orc horde. I'd do it again if I'd had to. And I'm always picking things up, absently fiddling with them, and sometimes accidentally breaking them. Her ideal will be honor, which is a lawful ideal. If I dishonor myself, I dishonor my whole clan. Her bond will be, I suffer awful visions of a coming disaster and will do anything to prevent it, to lay some groundwork for character development and plot ties for the DM to use, depending on how the campaign is being run. And her flaw will be, I am slow to trust members of other races, tribes, and societies, since that's most common for Eluskans. Now, from what I know of Ilusk, her second language is going to be Dwarvish, since they're generally well regarded by Eluskans. Her instrument's going to be a bone flute she carved herself from a hunt, and her trophy is a polished fang from the first beast she killed alone. Now that we know who Westra is as a person, we move on to equipment. Don't worry, we're almost done with your new character. I know this is a bit overwhelming, just stick with me. Equipment is what it appears to be, what weapons, armor, and other items your character has on them. This is also where proficiencies come in again. Westra, if we recall, has proficiencies in all armor and shields, simple weapons, and martial weapons. For a fighter's equipment, we can start off with a few options as listed by the handbook. Each class has lists like this in the class description. I'll choose for her to have chainmail, a martial weapon and a shield, a light crossbow with 20 bolts, and an explorer's pack. The martial weapons are listed in the equipment section. Since I feel like going classic, Westra is going to carry a longsword, which is a versatile weapon, meaning it can be used one- or two-handed. I can list all of her weapons and their attack points here. Her equipment will also include the items mentioned from her background. The longsword does 1d8 slashing damage one-handed, or 1d10 slashing damage if two-handed. The crossbow is a light or one-handed weapon and does 1d6 piercing damage with a range of 30 to 120 feet. We can also now determine her armor class, or AC. AC is the number of opponents have to roll to get past your defense to land a hit and cause damage. Chainmail is heavy armor and grants an AC of 16. Though you need a strength of 13 to avoid taking any speed penalties. This also means this character has a disadvantage on stealth, but that's okay for me and the character. Now, if you don't want to take the listed equipment options, you can calculate your starting GP and subtract the costs of the equipment you want from it. To do that, we just calculate the starting GP, which again is the in-game currency of gold pieces, which is 5d4 times 10 for a fighter. Each class has a different starting GP count, so watch out for that. I rolled 12 on a dice total, times 10 for a total of 120 GP. You can then subtract the cost of any equipment from that total pool. It is very rare that you will roll higher than the value of the starting equipment listed for your class and background combination, though, so be wary of this second option. And there you have it, your very own character. It's a lot of steps, but if you do your research at the links provided below and follow along with this handy video, you can create your new character in no time and also learn how to help others along the way. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us at your local library. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Annie from the Pikes Peak Library District, and I'll see you next time for more D&D Basics.